Circles are going. All right. And people are starting to come in. All right. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Maria. Hi, Paul, our boss. Welcome, everyone. All right, we're just going to give it a few minutes to see how many people are going to be logging in. We have a few more coming in. Hello, Margie. Hello, Debbie. Hello, Lillian. Hello, Sue. Welcome, welcome. I think I've spoken to most of you at various points over the last year or so. So for those who haven't met me yet, it's a good opportunity to at least put my face to a name, as well as my colleague Susie. Let's see, we've got someone else coming in. Okay. Didn't see how she popped in there for that. It's Jill. How about whilst we're waiting just a little bit longer for people to arrive, just in the chat message, if you don't mind saying hi and which facility and whereabouts in the world you are from. And just whilst we seem to be paused at that number, what I'm also going to publish, which I think should come through in the chat, is a simple poll, which I think should have appeared in the polls tab on the left-hand side. Just asking everyone if you wouldn't mind indicating how you heard about the webinar. I'm just curious to know which of our communication methods is working the best to be able to get people here today. All right. Hi, Jill. I don't know if I've actually spoken to you directly, but I know I have met your colleague Alex before. Maria, yes, we've spoken before. Margie, yes, from Bristol. And Sue, good to hear from you, Sue. All right, let's see how we're doing on attendee numbers. I think we seem to have I think we seem to have got a stable amount of people here today. So let's do some introductions and then we'll get cracking for today. So my name is Brian. I'm the technical sales lead at Exprodo Software. So my responsibility, as well as doing some support tickets on the side, which is how I've chatted to a number of you, I'm also responsible for doing demos and also some of the documentation and training through things such as the webinar today. And for those, I think just about everyone's probably met her, but I'll just pass over to Susie.
Hi, I'm Susie. I head up the support team. So I tend to then take over from Brian when we're looking at configuration and also make sure that any tickets that you guys have are sorted out as quickly as we can.
Okay. So thank you very much for all the answers on there. It looks like most people seem to be finding out through the email signature sending out, and a couple through the monthly newsletter. That's quite interesting. And Debbie, welcome. Yes, I know you're a very recent person to the Calpendo community. I'm taking over from Peggy, and Lillian, I think I've spoken to you before from the Netherlands. Okay, so everyone should hopefully be seeing the slide presentation coming through on your screens at the moment. Now, the way today is going to run is we're going to be looking at the topic of the layout editor in Calpendo. It's quite a powerful tool, which I think some customers use quite effectively, and a number of the customers are not using it at the moment and could probably benefit from some of the features within it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some of the theory, pointing out some specific aspects of the layout editor. And then I'm going to hop across into the demo system, and I'm going to then from there just take you through some basic editing of a layout. During this time, if you are able to, it may be useful if you have your own Calpendos open, and so that you can go into the layout editor itself. Now, if you're feeling nervous about making any changes, the nice thing about the layout editor is that it is very easy to undo things, turn something off, preview things without it actually being enabled for your end users. So it's a nice way of being able to experiment with some different approaches. If you lose your place with doing things on your own Calpendo, this is why we are also coming back to an actual live demonstration once I finish the slides. This may help you to catch up at that point. Okay.
If
Susie,
you've got any questions while Brian's going through, just type them into the chat box. So I'm going to be monitoring that. If it's a quick one-liner, I might reply to you in there, or get Brian to, or interrupt Brian and get him to cope with it then. If not, we're going to have a question session at the end as well. So if you've got any complicated ones, we will cover them there. But feel free to just put them in as we go along, and then I will come back to them at the end and we'll go through them.
Excellent. Okay, let's get going. So, layout editor. So, the layout editor is a feature which we added to Calpendo to allow users to create custom layouts on the screen for the properties on a biscuit. For those who don't know what a biscuit is, it is essentially our table system within Calpendo. We access it through the admin account. It's not something which your normal users will be able to access. It is only an administrator level feature. And it allows you to create these layouts for most biscuits, including, since we released version 10, our bookings biscuit as well. Now, the general principle of the layout editor is that we create property holders which can have different layouts and settings applied for each grouping of properties. A property, by the way, being a field within the table itself. These groupings will then be displayed most commonly as tabs, but in conjunction with a number of other features, you can deliver some interesting looks and layouts to help modify what your users see on the system. So I just thought to start off with to explain where we could potentially use the Layout Manager. And one of the key benefits of the Layout Manager, particularly now that we can use it with booking windows, is how we can use it for booking windows for different resources. Now, a little bit of background to begin with. Here we've got two resources on the same Calpendo, a Meg and a contrast agent. Now, what you will notice down at the bottom here is that it is possible to have different fields for the different booking windows, depending on the resources. This is delivered through something called a booking subtype. So we're going to be linking these layouts to the booking subtypes to enable us to have a little bit more control over how this window looks for your end user. Now, previously, before layouts became available for booking windows, whenever we added custom properties, they would just carry on being listed underneath these additional custom properties down here. Now, the initial fields up at the top, resource type owner, all the way down to reminders, these are our default properties, and we also could not do much there in terms of controlling the order and the layout of those properties. So this is somewhere where Layout Manager, the layout editor, is going to be very useful for you as an administrator. So before I actually get into the layout editor, I thought after the previous screenshots, I'll show you how, now that I've applied a simple layout, it changes just that one booking window. So on this booking window, I've now grouped some of my properties together. So I've got some post-booking options and an additional tab into which I can place fields to do with, let's say, patient data, as well as some other strategies which we're going to discuss later on in the webinar. This approach gives you that real deep control over what you can show to your users. Okay, so the layout manager. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to break down the overall look of the layout manager and what everything is and generally what it means for you. So on the left-hand side, we can see the Biskits which have had a layout applied to them. So some of these Biskits, particularly if you are working on a Calpendo which you haven't had for long, you will already see a number of Biskit layouts already created. This is because they tend to, many of these Biskits have additional layouts applied to them by default when that Calpendo is created. Now, what you will notice is that I've got, although I have removed these on my demo system ready to actually set something up at the end of this webinar, what you will notice here is that I've got a layout for the main booking window itself, but I've also got an additional layout for another booking subtype called additional resource. So this is how we can do different, well, see the different layouts for the different windows applied to the different resources. Another place in which Biskit layouts are commonly applied is also the project Biskit. We have one customer who has 150 or so properties on their project, organized into a number of separate tabs in order to manage how that information is displayed. Okay. Now, moving into the main editing part of the layout manager. So once you've selected one of the layouts to work with, firstly in this column here, we will see the list of the properties which are available to this layout. Now, if you create a layout for a Biskit and then later on add an additional property to that Biskit, the next time you go into the layout manager, that property will appear in unassigned properties. Now, if any of you have gone ahead and actually made any layouts now, you may notice that your layout either may or may not have this hidden category here. This is because if there are any properties on your Biskit which are already set to be hidden from your users, those will automatically be grouped into here, ready for you to decide what to do with them. So, in the main editing section, we have got some additional things to take a look at. We've got a button here called Add New Child. Now, Add New Child is how we create an additional grouping in the column on the left-hand side. Underneath Add New Child, we've got the name of the layout itself. Now, at the moment, we have only got one layout applying to the whole Biskit. We can apply different layouts to each child grouping underneath and set some attributes for each of those layouts. So for starters, we can have a booking layout as the name of that property, and that grouping, and that can be changed here. Once you've created a grouping down the left-hand side here, you can also decide whether to hide that grouping as well. So let's say you've set up a grouping, a couple of groups on your layout, and you decide at a later stage that you would like to actually remove access to a whole group of them. Instead of having to do it with each individual property, you can change that, that hidden setting for the whole group. Next, we can specify how any properties which use a multi-line setting for text, how they are displayed within that group. Are they handled within the table or as a separate tab? Then we've got, next couple of settings, we've got a property grouping method. Now, we've got a couple, property grouping method is used to describe how any groups created within the layout, whether it's the top layout or groups within one of the groups created, how those sub-tabs or groups are going to be displayed in the layout. And coming up, I've got a slide which shows some examples of those different methods of grouping those properties. In the heading, we can also add custom text to appear at the top of the child tab. And that custom text can also support basic HTML. So if you wanted to make something a slightly larger text, that is possible to do that within that heading tab. And then for the properties held within that group, you've got some options to choose from in terms of how to display those properties. And that is a nice one to actually experiment with yourself, particularly with the ability to preview each of your layouts. So taking a look at some examples of the different property groupings. So I've used the example of the project layout from the demo system because that's already got some groupings set out. So we can see here, we have got vertical tabs here. We have horizontal tabs on the right. This is the captions method of displaying grouped properties. It creates a box with that caption or name of that group displayed at the top. And then we've got the flow one, which uses the same groups, but doesn't show that box boundary and the label at the top. And for both caption and flow, if you adjust the size of your browser window, these properties will move accordingly. So they are slightly responsive as well. So let's now talk about how do we actually work with the properties within the layout manager. So here I've got the example of the project layout from the demo system, showing some groupings which have been created already within there. So we've got the general grouping. Now within that, we've created subgroupings called address and contact information and the status option here. So for the main grouping up at the top here for the main tabs, these are using vertical, but I can tell that if I was to click on the general one in the actual layout manager, I would see that the property grouping method for general is itself set to horizontal. So that's showing how the groups containing subgroups can have those different layouts depending on what you need. So there are a couple of ways to edit these properties and reorganize them. So firstly, you can move them one at a time by selecting them from the current holder and dragging to a new holder. In edit mode, you can also select the properties for the holder. And then in the list on the right-hand side, you can multi-select using Control or Shift. And then there is a small handle, I appreciate the resolution may not be so great, to the left of that property name, which you can then use to click and drag a number of properties and move it to a different holder. Additionally, you can create a notes field for each holder. This does require some separate functionality to be set up elsewhere in the bakery, which we won't be covering as a topic today because notes can be a fairly extensive topic, maybe a good topic for a future webinar. But it is possible to add a notes field into a tab within that layout. All right, we also have the preview option available within the layout manager. So the preview option is a nice one to be able to check how your layout is looking before you actually release it to your end users. Particularly if whilst you're editing it, you could have that layout set to disabled, but then still use the preview option within the layout editor to check how your layout is looking. In the read-write mode, which preview uses, anything which is automated or a property containing a formula cannot be seen. If you do want to test it with your actual data, but decide later to stop using the layout, you can disable it or even just delete it, refresh your browser, and the layout for that biscuit will return to normal. One nice little thing which we can do within certain layouts is we can set up functionality to handle sets of data. Now, from a support team perspective, we don't often recommend in the booking window doing lots of sets of data, but elsewhere for things such as projects or service orders, being able to have a set of data can be quite useful. Now, within that set of data, if you are defining a property which is going to handle a set of data, it's going to be automatically detected as a one-to-many type. And additionally, if I add in, or if you were to add in, some headers which match the headers of the information in each column, what the layout manager will then do is it creates an additional download button, which if your user clicks it, it downloads a CSV with the columns set up correctly. So that user can then perhaps copy and paste information from a separate Excel sheet into that CSV, and then uploads back into that, that set of data. You can choose the type of multi-edit. We have got an additional option, I'm thinking perhaps I should have shown that, called multi-edit on click, which we recommend for sets which are going to contain large amounts of data. So we're starting to round off some of the theory side of things, some strategies for using layouts. One of the best strategies is just simply grouping properties. If you've got a biscuit with a lot of properties on it, the layout manager is definitely going to be your friend. That ability to structure those groups, have subgroups within a main grouped tab is incredibly useful. Even if it's just used for doing something like putting optional or less important fields into other tabs. Sets of data can be handled. It's a good way to do that, but do it for things like service orders. However, we do have one or two customers who use sets for inventory ordering on the booking window. Customization, you've got that ability to add some basic HTML and free text to be able to add some static information to each of your layouts. So perhaps some additional instructions which you'd like to put on that layout. And then lastly, user role personalization. There is the ability to set different layouts for different roles or user groups. So there's a number of approaches which can be used, which together show that this is quite a powerful little feature within Calpendo. So I'm not going to, although I'm an ex-teacher, I'm not going to get you all to do the practical now during the session, but I thought I would just put something up here to encourage you to try and build one yourselves. Let us know how it goes through our support email, support@expredo.com, and we'll be interested to see how you've managed to approach setting out these layouts. Okay. So now let's move on to the demo side of things. So Susie, do we have any questions at this point?
No, everyone is remarkably quiet.
So hopefully, oh, okay. Just reading something in the chat. Hopefully this has all been fairly easy to understand so far. And yeah, any further questions? If you do have any, please let us know. So let me get that screen share going. Okay. All right, let me just wait a few seconds just for internet connections to catch up. And let's actually just push in the Zoom a little bit more. So I think that layout should be quite, that Zoom should be okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I cleared the previous layouts which I had for the PET scanner and for the contrast agent. So let's go and create a layout. We'll do one specifically for the PET scanner, as we've got some information here about inventory, which we could, there's only 2 properties, but let's move them into a separate tab. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to the layout editor. I'm going to click create, and I'm going to choose under booking, I'm going to choose the booking type, which the booking subtype, which is used for the PET scanner, which is additional resource. So this now sets up the basic layout for me. I see I've got a couple of properties which are hidden at the moment. I'm happy to keep those hidden for now. So I'm going to, happy with that name. I don't need to hide anything. Happy with that. I'll start off with horizontal tabs. Let's just put a example in. Right, leave the rest of that, and let's now add a new child. And I'm going to do the, sorry, I know I did just mention that, yes, it's the, it's already put it into something else for me. Let's do, oh no, that's the contrast one. Let's go back here. I'm going to move the cancellation ones down into a separate tab. So let's put in here cancellation options. And I'm going to click on properties. And I'm going to click cancelled and cancellation reason and cancellation comments. And move that, oh, missed the handle, move that and place that into my cancellation options properties. And within here, now I do have the property grouping method here, but that's not going to do anything at this point because I haven't created any subgroupings below that. Let's do a save and preview. And now we can see we've got some cancellation options here in their own separate tab. Let's go back to the main page. And I'm going to, actually, let me just refresh, as I will pull it down the latest layout. And now if I click on the pet scanner, and down here, we've got cancellation options. So actually, let me pull up one of the bookings. Actually, let's edit. And cancellation options are not appearing, but they have moved into there. So I wonder if there's something else going on which I might have missed. Anyways, that was a quick example of how to put move those properties into a subgrouping. Let's go back there. To then affect that layout and how it would appear for your end users. Okay, let's just stop sharing and go back to the browser. And I'm just going to bring my slides up again. Susie, are the slides still coming through on your side?
Nope, can't see the slides at the moment.
Okay, let me just stop the slide presentation and start it again. All right, that should have come back through. So just to finish off, unless there are any last questions, I hope that's been useful for everyone today. We do have our next webinar set up, and the registration is open for that. This is on working with linked bookings in Calpendo version 10. Linked bookings is another new module which we added to version 10 on a piece of functionality which we used to do through a very complex workflow, but we've now added built-in features to this to Calpendo in order to work with this. So this is where linked bookings allow you to create a booking for a main resource, and from that main booking, choose additional options which may add extra child bookings for other resources alongside the main booking. And there are a number of aspects to that. So we thought a new webinar on that would be a really good option to show. And that's coming up at 24th of February at the same time during the day. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm happy to stick around if anyone has any comments. And yeah, it's been nice to have a bunch of you on here today. All the best.
Okay, guys, any questions tangentially related to layouts or bookings? Right. Blown them all away.
Pleasure, Margie. Pleasure, Kathy. Nice to see you on. We're expecting, I think the support team is briefed to expect extra tickets coming in from people sort of wanting to add layouts to new things on your systems. Thank you, Maria.
Yeah,
thank you.
Do have a go at it yourself, because it's, as Brian was saying, it's one of those things which you can have a play with and make it look how you want it without worrying about messing things up badly.
You won't break anything on the system doing it. Yeah. I think since we've still got a couple of people still online, I think I'm going to ask, does anyone have any other ideas for other webinars people might find useful in the future? I know certainly we've got the linked bookings one planned, but for March, I'm happy to, although being in Texas for that, sorry, not Texas, California for that, I'm not quite sure I'll be able to squeeze one in March.
Right, so in March, I'll be doing a webinar.
I think Susie will be doing the webinar. Hi, Debbie. Seems very fun. It seems like I can make edits and create a new layout. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Thank you, Andrew, by the way. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can do that on a live site.
So yeah, as an administrator, you have got all the rights to change stuff on your Calpendo that we've got, basically.
Yeah.
Apart from some very fundamental stuff that we'd have to log in as a root user for. So yes, you can go and you can play with it. What I would say is, as you are setting it up, right, if you have a look at the screen that Brian's showing right now, you can see that the second row down, there's something that says enabled. So that's set to true there. If while you're playing with it, you set that to false, then it won't show on your live site at all. But you can still click on the preview to see what it'll look like. And then when you're happy with it all, you can set that to true, and then that will apply and your users will see it when they log into the site. So while you're playing with it, just set that enabled to false, and that won't affect anything.
That would be the preview option then, if you want to, in a sense, sandbox the layout. The preview would be the best way to do that.
If you get to a point where you want to really learn to configure your own Calpendo and do a lot of work in it, a lot of admin work on it, rather than asking us through tickets to do work for you, and start to sort of learn how to properly set it up, or if you've got somebody else who's very technical who'd like to do that, then we can create your own test site for you as well. But I think we charge a small amount for hosting an additional test site if that's something that you want to be doing. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah. That's absolutely spot on. I do know as well, Debbie, that Frank is currently working on a that's a fair point. Sorry, Paul's just texted me privately to say that I should have mentioned that Debbie was asking these questions privately. So Debbie was just asking about a sandbox version and and how to make these changes herself. I don't think we've got many people left on at the moment. So actually what I'm going to say is that I'm going to say cheers to those who are still here, and I'm going to end the webinar in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye, guys.